Hello everybody and welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to I Want to Know, the show where we ask your burning we answer your burning questions around the Bible and Christian living. I'm joined today with my co-hosts Mavu and Mamiala. Mamiala, you know a little bit. Mavu's joining us today. Won't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Hi, I am Mavu. I am 19 years of age. I'm currently a first-year student studying at the University of Pretoria. And today we have invited Pastor Louis and Pastor Natasha to join us as we will be talking about marriage.
Oh, good to be with you, yeah. We've only been married 29 years, so we don't know a lot yet.
We're still figuring it out.
Wow, it's so good to have you guys here and have you guys listening. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. We spoke about Jolo dating, we spoke about being single. Now it's marriage. And I want to ask the first question because we don't know, Pastor, for some people, marriage is that ticket. It's that ticket to legally have sex. You guys know what I'm talking about. They've been waiting for it. And it's marriage. It's guilt-free. For other people, it's, hey, man, this lady has been nagging me. Let me just get it over and done with. For other people, the whole family, at every family function. So, when are you getting married? That's the only thing I want to know. But I think it's very important to frame what is marriage before we actually get into the discussion, because many people have different ideas about marriage. So what is marriage?
Well, I think for me, the first thing I want to say is that marriage is instituted by God. It's God's idea, not ours. So therefore, it's important for me to always think, what did God have in mind? Why did he take the trouble? Right there in Genesis 1 and 2, where so much is happening. The whole heavens and the earth is being created. I mean, it's big stuff. And he takes the time to institute marriage. Man and a woman coming together in a covenant relationship. What was his idea with it? Because that elevates it to a place for me where it's not just about my needs. My need for sexual expression. It cannot be about that. It cannot be about procreation. It cannot just be about even
loneliness.
Yeah, loneliness, companionship. It's about more than that. Those things are all elements of it that are in there, that are important. But if we make it about that, I think we devalue marriage. So marriage to me is always this expression of who God is and this relational desire that he had and that he wanted us to experience. And he created this unique space for us to actually have intimacy with one other person that brings you to a deeper place of relationship than you will ever have with anybody else.
And a much deeper friendship,
Yeah.
I know in the beginning of marriage, it's the sexual part is so extremely important for everybody, but you must not ever forget the incredible, incredible friendship that is part of that. And I think that for me is amazing. It's covenantal friendship. It's not just friendship, it's covenantal friendship.
Please explain that, because there are some high schoolers that are like, what on earth is that? That's a big word. But it's such an important word. What is covenantal friendship? Because we live in a society where I block you, I delete you. What's the end of the friendship?
Yeah.
Because you're not. But there's something beautiful about covenantal friendship.
Yeah, well, I think what makes a marriage relationship unique, other than any other relationship, is that it has to be completely exclusive. Other relationships I can share with people, more people than persons than one. The biblical idea is that there's an exclusive relationship between two people, that there's elements there that nobody else can come into. And that's what creates the safety. That it's the two of us, and if this is going to work, it's going to depend on us. Nobody else can make our relationship work. It doesn't belong to anybody else. And that's why the Bible said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and become one with his wife. It sort of isolates that relationship. So to me, it's about understanding it's exclusive. Intimacy, by definition, is exclusive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll just have a physical experience, but you won't reach intimacy.
Yeah. Wow. Just because you're physically naked with somebody else doesn't mean you're experiencing intimacy with that person. Because intimacy is a protected space where
A vulnerable space.
And our intimacy has grown over these 29 years because we have come closer. We trust each other more because we've gone through good and bad times. But it's the exclusivity of it and the timelessness of it that defines a marriage. A marriage is defined by as till death do us part. So there's a sense of it that we're not giving this a good go, and then if it works, it works. But that gives me the protection that we are equally invested in this, because we're in this.
Yeah.
This is, by hope and by our faith, this is our only marriage that we'll ever have.
Yeah.
And that means we are equals in this because we are equally invested. And that creates that space of safety, and that's where the covenantal element becomes very important. So like you say, it's not an option for us to go, well, this is not working, we're out of it.
When you go through a dip in a marriage where you're like, I wonder if I like this guy.
I love him, but I don't like him so much.
I think it's good to say that all marriages go through that.
All marriages go through this all the time, but then you don't up and out. That's what covenant does for you. Is like when you go through those difficult times as one of the partners in it, that I'm there for that partner, even if I disagree, even if I'm not just going to take my stuff and leave. Yeah. These days people leave very quickly, and it's just a little bit, perseverance in it, and that's what creates the incredible covenant friendship.
Yeah, I think for me it's been, it's one of the most precious things in my life, is the fact that there's somebody that knows me, and they know me. They know my failures. They know my weak points. They know my sensitivities, my fears, my hopes, my dreams, my failures. And they love me. Sure. Nobody believes that. And they love me. They've stuck by me. So when I'm feeling at my most vulnerable, I've got somebody that I can go to that understands that. I don't have to be hiding that and feeling alone because nobody must know this.
Or perfect. You don't have to Photoshop your marriage. I think that's the one thing is, especially with people doing lots of online dating and friendships and, reaching intimate levels on online platforms or WhatsApps or whatever. When you're together as a person, you're vulnerable in such a way that is just actually amazing, and that you have to experience.
Yeah.
All right, the next question is marriage the only place where you can truly understand the profound relationship that God has with his church?
I don't think so. I think the Bible uses different analogies to describe our relationship with God, like father, children, king, subjects. There's different analogies, shepherd, sheep. But what marriage definitely does is it does give us a view into a certain element of our relationship with God that probably other analogies won't. I think the intimacy thing, because the intimacy we can experience is only a scratch in the surface of the intimacy that God has within the Trinity and that he wants to have with us. So it's what makes me aware that, wow, there's more. And I think marriage does that. That whole beautiful picture of Christ and his bride, the romance, the tenderness of that, I think is something unique that it reveals to us. So I certainly think there's something that we will not know about how God feels about us if we don't have marriage. But I don't think it's the only. I think, that relationship is so...
As a single person, you can quite,
Yeah, because otherwise you can't know God if you're not married.
No.
And I don't think that's true.
That's true, yeah.
Because some people like Paul, believe God didn't want them to get married. And I don't think any of us will say Paul didn't know God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think just for those watching, that analogy is in Ephesians 5.
Yeah.
And I think Paul's using it to just describe the relationship that, it's the intimacy between a husband and a wife, is the intimacy between God. But I don't think it's idealized. I think we must be very careful we don't reverse the analogy from Christ and the church, husband and wife, to you can't know God.
Yeah.
I might say this a bit later, but singleness is not second best.
No.
Singleness is, if it's God's place for you, it's the best place for you, and you'll get to know God. I mean, if you think of someone like Mother Teresa, you mentioned Paul, she knew God, she knew Jesus in a very intimate way.
Yeah.
But she was never married because she was a Catholic nun. Okay, for everybody.
But singleness is also that undistracted relationship with God.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about a husband or children or all of those things. It's that very exclusive relationship with God, which is which is fabulous. So you have that for a time in your life. So don't sell yourself short on that. It's
I
great
think
to have that.
it's not to your question, but I think we're uncovering something important, that being single is not some waiting station that you're trying to just get over.
Yeah.
It's a time in your life. It struck me. We were like, you're so building up to when we got married. And so much is about it. And then after our marriage, I realized, man, this is for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I only had a small window of time where I
I was
actually was
single,
preparing and
yeah.
being prepared. And so a friend of mine always, when we were studying Year of Your Life, he always said, I'm single-mindedly single.
Yeah.
Ooh, what
And
is
I
that?
thought that was a good concept, because he wasn't saying I'm single because I don't have somebody. He said I'm single because that's the place I need to be.
It's the time for that.
And there's a space, there's an importance, there's a value to being single.
Yeah.
Because as we always say, in marriage, 2 halves don't make a whole, 2 wholes make a whole.
Ooh.
And we'll never be completely whole when we get married, but I want to be the best, the happiest with myself. If I'm not happy with myself, she's not going to make me happy. You know what I mean? If I'm not content with who God made me to be, she's not God's mechanism to make me feel happy about myself. That's unreasonable. And I think that's the point that Neil's making. We idealize marriage. We think it's this fix-all. It's this place that you arrive and now everything is taken. And I think that's the problem. That often happens. It's not.
But something you can for sure learn in marriage is about self-sacrificial love.
Yeah,
which is probably a bit. I think you can learn it when you're single.
Yeah.
But it's when that person's around you all the time, good times, bad times, and you have to sacrifice
It's in your face,
yourself.
man.
Yeah.
You can learn that. It's probably a lot
I
better.
mean, for 29 years now, I cannot get her to take a new toilet roll and put it on that little thing that you put it.
I'm creative.
She never puts it on. And for 29 years, it's my self-sacrificial act that I put it on, and I don't complain with her. But I'm making use of this opportunity to go
Let it be noted.
Let it be noted.
It doesn't work.
Wow.
So we can't, do you want to ask a question? I just wanted to, because we kind of moved on to kind of one of the next questions that people asked.
Yeah.
So we've touched on it, but one of the questions that the guys asked was that, are there things you can learn about Jesus in marriage that you won't learn when you're single? So, it was the self-sacrificial love, but other things. Mamela, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, because I think a huge problem is, I think young people don't know how to wait.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't been taught how to wait. And in the instant culture that we have now, followed by our newsfeed of so-and-so getting engaged and so-and-so, you're like, Lord, where is my partner?
Yeah.
And if yes, I'm supposed to be waiting, what are you supposed to be teaching me? Because I feel like I'm not learning anything at this moment. And so I think if it's, that question that Neil asked is very important. Like, what are the things we can learn that you can only learn?
Yeah. Well, I want to answer that from the process of, because again, I think if we set up marriage as, there's things in my life that are missing, and when I get married, those things are going to be settled and are going to be given to me. While that's true in some ways, it's also not true in many different ways. I can remember, when I was at that age now, thinking, okay, I'm going to get married, and then when I fell in love with Natasha, and she became the one for me that I wanted to get married and needed to pursue her. By the way, she didn't have the same conviction. She didn't want to get married.
I never wanted to
at
get
that
married.
stage. And I can remember the Lord speaking to me and saying, you have to fight for this relationship. But how you fight for it is on your knees in prayer. And what I recognized is that time of praying changed me to become a good husband for her more than anything else. So marriage only works because I'm prepared to give myself 100% to this. And then I trust God that she will give herself. I can't fix her. I can't change her. That's not my responsibility. I can just be me. And I think that's the wonderful thing that you learn in a relationship where you're so vulnerable because so much doesn't depend on you. That's the danger of that relationship, and that's why I think so many people are scared of it and want to live together rather than get married, because then there's an easy way out where marriage is all in. And it's only God that could have this wisdom to say, you're going to promise this exclusivity and for all time to a person that in some way you don't know well enough to actually make those claims. But the reality is, if you don't make those promises first, you don't have the context to actually allow you to get to know that person. And I think that for me is so when we're in a marriage, certainly what I've learned is the being in that position of being so vulnerable with another person that can at any moment harm you and hurt you. But if I'm not prepared to have that, I will not enjoy that level of intimacy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what.
I think, often you enter into marriage with walls. I want to see if it works.
Because it's about me. I want to be.
Yeah, because you want to get married to fill my needs, but actually you get married to be that person to your partner. To give, to self-sacrificially give. That's what Christ did. That's why that analogy is in the Bible. Is Christ's self-sacrificial love for the church. Wow. That without that we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have been who we are as a church today, So that's the thing is in a marriage that is amazing. And before the time is to think, I want to enter into this marriage, but God, prepare my heart now so that I don't love with a hook. Sure. That I don't love to want to take all the time.
Love with the hook. Come on. Yeah.
But that I give, that it's agape love. It's not just the eros. And marriage has all of the loves in it, that incredible self-sacrificial love. That is what Christ is talking about, Christ and the church, that agape love for one another, So if you want to enter into marriage because of your needs, I am the center of my world, so that means I will always stay the center or fight for my little island in the marriage. Oof. Do you understand? So you have to love with a giving heart, with a self-sacrificial heart, with a I want to strengthen you and help you to be all you can be and grow in this marriage. And you do that to me, that's a winning recipe. Yeah. But if I'm in it and I want to take, you want to take, man, where's it going to end? It's going to tear apart.
So actually, in some of the early episodes, you guys might remember we spoke about, allowing what we define love to be by Hollywood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
exactly.
Often when I talk to young people as they're preparing for marriage, I'll say to them, what you must remember is you're going to learn to love the other person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
because
trust.
you think you love them,
Yeah.
and you step into marriage. And so you'll be talking about, can Jesus teach you things in marriage that maybe you're not single? Is how to learn to love somebody for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I love my wife now different than when I loved her 23 years ago,
Yeah.
when we started, because I've learned about her, the vulnerability, the intimacy, those things are all there. But you learn to love because you're in and you can't get out. So you have to figure out how you're going to love the person.
Yeah.
That's
exactly. Yeah.
So ultimately it's a series of deaths. You're dying to self
Exactly.
every single day.
So there's actually a guy, I forget his name, he talks about like living sacrificial lives and it talks a lot on prayer. And he actually says God lets you get married because he wants to kill you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I always remember what Bob Mumford says. He says marriage is often a love-hate relationship. He says you don't go love a little bit, less love, a little bit less love and friendship. And then he says you go love, hate. Then you make up and then you like, because one moment you want to kill this person, the moment you like, I'm so in love with this person, how could I have ever? It's just this incredible, mojo that is there.
Because it's all in,
Because you are all in.
There's no escaping it. So.
Speaking of all in, the next question really ties in with that. And so let's put an analogy. You see a girl, hey man, or a guy, this person is it. This is your rib. You're going for it. You pursue. And then there's that awkward moment. The whole church is side-eyeing you. Your family is side-eyeing you. You kind of feel it. She's posting pictures of her friends being engaged. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I'm not saying anything, but I'm highly suggesting something. When is the right? Are you ever ready? Do you know when you are ready or when you're not ready for marriage? When is someone ever ready for marriage? Because I know for me as a young adult black guy, the thing that at the back of my mind is a massive lowball. I'm going to sit down in front of uncles and part with money that I really don't want to partner with. I mean, come on, let's be real now. I don't want to be paying a whole lot of logo.
Marry a white girl, man. That's it. Marry a white girl.
It's incredible, you know. It's great. So, and even at that, when you have the money, it's like, am I capable?
Yeah.
Do I have the ability to do this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can think for myself. I can buy myself a pair of sneakers. But if I'm thinking for a family now, how do I know whether I'm at the right age to do this?
Well, I think in that sense, you'll never be ready. Because you're signing up for something you have very little frame of reference for.
Wow.
I think part of your frame of reference comes from your own parents. And that could be good or bad. But even if it's a good union, it doesn't really answer your questions, if you know what I mean. So in that sense, it's hard to prepare yourself for that which you don't quite know. That's why it's a step of faith. Marriage is always a step of faith.
Marriage is a step of faith.
It's got to be a step of faith. But in another sense, there's a lot you can do to prepare for it. What you can do to prepare for it is to make sure that you are the person you're supposed to be in God, that you love God, that you allow Him to work in your life, that you are doing what you need to do in that sense. So in that sense, your preparation for marriage is by focusing on yourself and being the person God wants you to be, obeying Him, living your life. You understand? And not letting your desire to be married become so your distraction that you're missing out on what God should be doing in your life.
Say that again, Pastor. Say that again.
You know, where you're so focused on this, you know, I need to get married. And it almost becomes a thing that defines you.
Sure.
But that's unfair. I mean, it's so unfair for me to say I'm defined by her. There's only one person that can define me outside of myself, and that's God, because He has the ability to do that. He has the strength. It's unfair to put that on her.
Sure.
So I prepare for marriage by, good relationships. Good relationships with a person of the opposite sex while I'm not married to them is a good preparation for.
It does get complex.
It does get complex. But exactly. But then I've got to understand it for what it is and not try and make a friendship outside of a marriage before I'm getting married. Make that a marriage relationship.
Oh.
You don't prepare for marriage by simulating marriage.
Oh my God. Are you hearing what
I'm hearing it.
That's the world's wisdom. The world's wisdom says, you know, how can you know that you're going to be happy with your wife or your husband if you haven't tried with other girls?
Wow.
You're going against the very definition of a marriage by doing that. You know, it's the old analogy of you don't buy a car without taking it for a test drive. Now, I always want to say, well, if you think you're a car, then go ahead and let people take you for a test drive. But you're not a car. God made you unique, special in the image of Christ. There's something beautiful about you. There's something precious, which in God's wisdom can only be discovered in a marriage.
Sure.
So you're breaking down who you are by simulating married life.
Wow.
With somebody else.
You know, often as teenagers at school that I've seen as well is you in that very vulnerable high school life that you live, you learn to be friends. You know, it's something that you learn. You don't just pitch there at school and you have a whole bunch of friends and you know what to do. You learn in your friendships maturity of relationship, and you develop. You learn to get to know yourself a bit better. You learn how to engage with other people, and you mature a little bit. If you start, especially at teenage level, with heavy intimate relationships already, you don't have the maturity to handle the breakup.
Oof.
You know what I'm saying? You
Come on,
don't have the
somebody.
maturity. That's why we go for extreme ways of handling breakups in teenage and in schools. So you have this time as a teenager to be friends, to prepare in how do I mature in relationships. So that when I am a little bit older, I have learned some skills. I've learned some social development, you know, through socialization. I've seen children that don't socialize, how they struggle with relationships because then you take that one person and that person becomes your everything, and it becomes like that. You become like a monster that swallows that person. So the more you learn before marriage to visit in a group, to be friendship in a group, the safer it is for you to learn and to mature in how does this whole relationship thing work before you actually go into more serious relationships.
Wow. Wow, that's so good. And I think it's really important to just, for those listening and watching, because sometimes we engage in sexual things very early.
Yeah.
Yes,
And the problems we encounter are not congruent to the maturity that we have.
absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
And sometimes
You do not have as a 13, even as a 16-year-old, the maturity that a 21st year or a 23rd year old person will have. So you are going to, just because of age, I'm not even talking about life experience, just because of age, you handle things a little bit better at this age than you do at this
But I
age.
think also the other element of it is that intimacy is a prize at the end of a process.
Yeah.
It's like right now we have the Olympic Games. That gold medal, you cannot buy it. If you buy it, it has little value. It is a prize because you worked so hard for
Like the
it.
Commonwealth,
It's
yeah.
the prize at the end of a process. If you want to skip the process and just have the prize doesn't mean anything. And so what is our temptation is we want the intimacy now, but I don't want the process.
Wow.
So the devil, the Hollywood, sells us on the lie that you can have the prize, but you don't have to do the process.
Sure.
So I have sex before marriage, and I get a
Why-
taste of the
Why
prize.
just even insinuate that intimacy, because you can have an intimate relationship with a girl on WhatsApp without
Yeah.
sex, you know.
Come on, somebody. You know what we're talking about. You
I mean,
know.
it's
yeah.
a real added pressure for you younger people now, is without the challenge of the risk of the face-to-face, you build these extremely vulnerable
Romantic
relationships
ideas
that
of what it
feels
should
real,
be.
but they're not
Yeah.
really real, are they? And so we want the prize, and then the devil tells us you can have the prize. Skip all this hard work and just go for the prize. The problem is you don't get the prize.
Yeah.
You get something that's the imitation of the prize. And what we see, for instance, what pornography does with people is it gives them the taste of the prize, but it consistently devalues the prize. So when you actually get to the place where you now can have the prize, you don't know what the prize is anymore.
We don't know what the prize is anymore.
And then
Yeah.
it becomes this pursuit that because you've been so broken
And especially if that other
fragmented,
partner-
you know, that,
If that other partner doesn't handle you, because you go in all in, and that other person is like, oh, today you're the guy, but tomorrow it might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
somebody else, then you can't handle that rejection. And you walk with that rejection into the next relationship, if you could even handle it, because you just don't have the emotional capacity, growth in yourself as a person to be able to handle that disappointment.
So to come back to your question, therefore, me honoring my singleness before I get married and being pure is the greatest preparation you can do for your marriage
Wow.
life.
Yeah.
Because then you're not bringing all this baggage into it. We were so fortunate that when we got married, we never had to have a conversation where, listen, I had sex with this person because we both got married as virgins. So we didn't bring that into our relationship. We still had other challenges and problems and stuff, you know, I'm not, you know, whatever. But that was a preparation for marriage.
Wow.
You are, you know, it's like that Olympic swimmer. Every day they have to swim their kilometers in an empty room with nobody watching, and it's hard. But one day they get that prize.
Wow.
And so I think that's the preparation. So yes, it's always going to be a step of faith. You're never going to be perfect and say, I've got this. It's a fearful moment, man, when you make that decision. And it has to be.
So you can prepare, but you
But you-
never really prepare.
You need to be, you said it earlier, you need to be as whole as you can,
Yeah.
but you can't be perfect.
No.
Yeah.
Position yourself the
Yeah.
best way you can.
Yeah.
You can break down on your future marriage now, or you can build your future marriage now.
Oof. Oof. Please say that again. You can break down on your future marriage now.
By the things you do now positions you better or worse to be a spouse. That's just simple.
Yeah.
We all know that.
So let's say for someone who's watching now, man, I have slept around. I have been, hey, listen. It's
Player.
Yeah, they've got the baggage right here. It's
Yeah. You take that baggage with
Yeah.
you into a relationship.
Is it possible to turn around 180 and be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know
Of
what,
course.
be whole, or is it over?
No.
No.
That's the amazing thing about who our God is. He's the creator and he's the recreator. There's nothing in creation that can get lost that God cannot restore because he created it in the first place. So when he made Mavu, he knew who he made. He made her beautiful. He made her with his plans and purposes. If for any reason, and we all do, we deviate from that plan, when we allow God, he can bring us back to that.
Come on.
So I can never become a virgin again if I've lost my virginity. But I can be restored to a place of purity.
Ooh.
By repentance. Repentance is recognizing that my lifestyle, my behavior is not right with God, and I agree with him that it's not right. Not because somebody else puts pressure on me, the church, my family, or because I'm in trouble, but because I am convinced that this is not right. It's not God's way. So that conviction then brings about a repentance where I say, now I'm going to live the other way. And I have to get serious about that and make a covenant commitment with God.
He's the center of my life.
And even if I fail, because it's if you slept around, you don't switch that switch off.
No, not so quickly.
The problem is, if you've held a girl's hand once, that's the hill you've conquered. Now you want the next thing.
Yeah.
So if you've gone, as they say in vernacular, to fourth base, and you've gone all the way, you have to really work hard to get to the place where you actually want to start at the beginning with somebody. Normally, you start where you ended off.
Yeah.
And that's a restoration of body, soul, and spirit that needs to take place. And that there's a process, and we can talk about that if you want to, but it's possible.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you have to
do the work.
do the work. And be
And
committed.
commitment.
Okay, the next question is it good to have accountability partners in a marriage? And also, what does accountability look like in a marriage?
Okay. I think it's
You
a
don't
yes.
want too many voices in
Yeah.
your marriage.
It's a
Let's
yes
start there.
and a
We don't
no.
wanna-
Let me say this. I think it's good, and Natasha can say how she feels. I think it's good to have accountability partners because you're going to hit some blind spots. And you want people that are older than you, that have gone down the road a bit further, to go, that's normal. Because sometimes,
That's helpful, yeah.
it's helpful. Look, we all go through
We're
that.
not going crazy.
Because sometimes you think you're the only one.
You're the only one.
And
it
actually
does
someone
help.
goes,
Yeah.
no, don't worry about
So
it.
if that's the role that the
That's-
accountability partner plays, that we can talk through.
Yeah. So we certainly had people in our lives that have been really helpful to just give us perspective. The problem is if you make accountability partners and they are actually more invested in your marriage than what you are.
They tell you what to do.
You
all
give
the time.
them authority to tell you what to do. Then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Nobody has authority in our marriage other than the two of us.
Yeah.
That's God's design.
You have to build, you have to learn to trust. You don't get married and the next day you trust. You learn to trust. And that means you make mistakes and you got to figure it out together.
Yeah.
And you got to learn to know who God is. You knew who God is with you. But now who is God with both of us? You know what I'm saying? How do we relate to him with both of us? And so you got to learn certain things. And if you constantly bring in other voices that will tell you what to do, you're never going to learn to become one. Do you know what I'm saying? You're always going to be these two people in the marriage with a third party.
Yeah.
Actually, and if those people go out, then you're just going to put somebody else in there. But at the end of the day, you got to take the bull by the horns and you got to fight it through and you got to figure it out and you got to pray about it, wrestle with God. So he's the best accountability partner that you can have. But it is helpful to have other people to talk with.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to know that Louis telling all my intimate things to someone else.
I was gonna say,
You know,
that
I don't
scares
know.
me.
That's not going to work.
Because
You know what I'm
we on the
saying?
other side, we're often the people that people will come to when they've got challenges in their marriage.
Yeah.
Then sometimes what hurts me is I feel like I'm more invested in their marriage than what they are. I'm fighting for them. They come and see me or us and they say, listen, we've got a problem in our marriage. You must fix it.
Oh, yeah.
I can't fix somebody else's marriage. So in that sense, that's a challenge. But if you ask me about accountability partners, I'm a younger person and even I'm starting a relationship, it's getting serious before I'm married. Absolutely. I think accountability partners are really good in that space. Again, they mustn't own your relationship. I don't even give myself the right to tell one of my sons who they must marry.
No.
It's not the job of anybody else to tell you.
I tell God that.
That's your choice. That's your choice. And an accountability partner must understand the limits to their authority. But it is very helpful. But again, I can't hold you accountable. You must make yourself accountable. Do you understand the difference? Because you will only be accountable as to the level that you are prepared to be honest and open.
So good.
So you can tick the box, I've got an accountability partner, but you don't actually tell them what's going on.
Something that's helped me and Tia a lot in this area is we have an agreement. If we get stuck,
Yeah.
then we'll go talk to other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just get stuck and it's, I think this and you think that, or
Yeah.
we have this perspective, or you always, or I always. There's always those
Yeah.
fantastic extreme languages that we tend to
Yeah,
sometimes use in language. To then go to somebody else and say, look, we're talking around this issue, but we're not getting it solved.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the first times we did that, they told us, no, but that's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we could go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then we could move on. So our agreement is if we ever get stuck, but then we do it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Together.
And
I mean-
really stuck. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
joking because I'm not the type of person that wants to pull in other people into my marriage all the time.
So
you
what do
know,
we mean
so-
by really stuck?
So if you can't move past it,
Yeah.
you keep coming against this issue. I think we should do this. You think we should do that. It could be as simple as the decision making. Obviously, on not like what groceries you're going to buy, like
Yeah.
what you're going to do. Are you having children or not, or something?
Yeah.
Then you can say, see this. Or you just every time you keep coming to this place where, well, I think you're like this, and I need you to change, and I think you're like that, and I need you to
Yeah.
change, and one of us has to adjust.
I think
One
when
of
you
us
get
has
to the
change.
place where you
Yeah.
say, we can't talk about this anymore,
Okay.
It's always a fight.
it's always a fight. So either we're going to forget this and not talk about it ever again,
And lose intimacy.
and then you begin to lose intimacy,
Oh,
you
boy.
understand. So when you get to that point, I'm not saying it's the only time, but then you definitely need to be able to bring other people in. And again, it's so helpful that you have built relationships with other people so that you're not calling a stranger from the cold necessarily now to come in and have to. Some situations it's helpful that you go to a professional outside person, but so much can just be because there's people that know you, that understand you, and they can just give you that little perspective that you own and say, I now understand that somebody translates for me what she's been trying to tell me all the
Yeah,
time, but
exactly
I
that.
couldn't hear.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I handle this is a dangerous way. But the scripture it says the sun doesn't go down over your
Don't let the
conflicts.
sun go
Don't
down.
let- if the sun didn't go down, we wouldn't have been sitting here.
There's sometimes when it's just good to say,
The sun
"You're
must
gonna
go
sleep
down. So I've
Because
seen.
some things you just don't solve at 2
You
o'clock in
don't
the morning.
solve
Just
it.
go to sleep.
You
Yeah.
don't. So especially if you're tired or whatever. So I look at it as walking around the mountain. You know, when you study a difficult thing, you study it, and the first time you read that book, you're like, I have no idea what is this. But the more you read it, the more you get used to it, and the more you start getting the lingo. So I like to walk around the mountain once, and then we go back. Then we did our fight. I pray this prayer, Lord, defend Louis' case in me. I pray that. I say, because I'm completely convinced of my position. And you got to really man up to fight with me. Now, I'm not giving in quickly. So then I say, Lord, because at the end of the day, it's about this relationship. God, if I have conflict here, I'm going to struggle here.
Yeah.
So God, I'm coming to you. Come and defend Louis' case. How? And then often I have to go say, I'm sorry. I didn't the way I fought with you. I'm not giving up my values yet. I'm not so brave yet. I want to walk through it, but we fought so much. There was so much emotion involved that we couldn't talk sense. So I'm sorry for the way I did it. I often say it that. But can we now maybe have another discussion? And then we have another discussion. Sometimes that ends up heated as well. But we've progressed.
Wow.
You know, so the rules of engagement is often something to learn. Then just to give up quickly and say, I'm going to go to a third party. You know, so walk that road a little bit. But then if you see, but there is no ways that we can get through it. And both people agree on it to go for counseling. That's great. So otherwise, if I am the only one going for counseling, then I'm talking on my behalf. Doesn't help I bad mouth my husband all the time. I'm talking for I'm then accountable that because the opposite spirit works. So keep me then accountable that I am able to work with this man, you know.
Wow, that was just, hey, listen, that was a lot, guys. I think we need so much to process. Listen, we've got the big dogs here. We've got Pastor Louis and Pastor Natasha, and they're dropping some bombs today. And we don't want to squash it all. So we're gonna continue next week. Stay tuned. Follow our Instagram and our podcast. We'll be back with you next week.